So let it be written. So let it be done. This is Tabletop Terrors, and we're going to do a session 0 together. So this is for the game master who maybe isn't necessarily comfortable enough asking all of these questions to everyone in the group, or maybe you just want to break because you're getting ready to run a campaign for everybody. Either way, we're literally going to just read these questions, give a very brief explanation, and there's going to be a short pause for you to actually pause the video, write down your answers, and then just hit play again, and we're just going to work through these questions. Let's get started.
So the first question is anyone here entirely new to tabletop gaming? And if so, what are the expectations and upfront need-to-knows before we can start? This is for anyone that doesn't really know what's going on or hasn't played a game like this before, but if your group is comfortable with this one is somewhat optional.
So the next question, getting into the details about the setting, is what setting is the game being played in, and what are the pillars of the world? The pillars of a world, if you don't know what that term is basically 4 or 5 things that set this world apart from other ones that make it unique and give it its tonal feeling. So Star Wars might have lightsabers and spaceships. Lord of the Rings might have, orcs and, darkness covering the land and elves leaving the world. Just a couple details that make it stand out from other settings and the things that really kind of give it its own spirit.
Question number 3, what aspects of that world do you want to explore most deeply? To use Jeff's Star Wars example, that's a huge universe. So you can't just assume that when we say Star Wars, we're all talking about the same thing. Do you want to play as Jedi Knights with lightsabers or bounty hunters on the edge of the galaxy? That's what this question is looking to answer.
Question number 4 is, what questions or mysteries do you eventually want answers to? So this can be a lot of things, as it could be something really big like, who rules the world currently, or something really small like, I was separated from my brother or sister at birth and I'd like to meet up with them again. This is generally something for discussion, and everybody kind of will agree on maybe a few things you'd like to explore. And this really gives the game master a lot of things to latch onto about where the story should take place and what way it might go.
These next set of questions are getting into the specifics about this campaign, diving in from the world a little bit zoomed in. So what is the overall pitch of the game's story? So to kind of lean into the same sort of Star Wars example that we've been following. So it might be, we're going to play as bounty hunters on Tatooine who are trying to get enough credits to scrape by, or we're going to play as Jedi Knights who are trying to survive after the Jedi Order has fallen. Just kind of specifically what sort of story you're trying to tell. Is this a good versus evil on a big, huge world scale? Is this a super small, zoomed in, intimate, just people trying to survive? What kind of feel of this game are you trying to hit?
So the next one is, what sort of tone do you want to go for as a rule of thumb? So what's the mood of the game overall? Is it going to be lighthearted and adventurous like Indiana Jones? Or is it going to be a little more dark and maybe even more serious like Game of Thrones? It's important that you decide this early on so that nobody comes in expecting Indiana Jones and gets Game of Thrones, or vice versa.
This next section is going to focus on the characters everyone will be playing. And question number 7 is, what characters will everyone be playing, both mechanically and narratively? The answer to this question may be relatively quick if everybody has figured out what classes or whatever they're playing and who their people are, or you could take a little more time and kind of go around the table and see what everybody's feeling to get an idea for what everybody's playing.
The next question is, does the party know each other at the start of the game? Is this an adventuring party that's already been working together for a long time? Is everybody just going to meet each other for the very first time in session 1? What kind of connections do people have with each other?
So this next one is, what specific connections would those be? Either direct or indirect. Like, what do the characters share? This is important because some characters might want to have a secret backstory. Others might want to have a character at the table who perhaps they have worked with or has wronged them. Decide exact connections and work with your game master and be certain that you don't keep anything secret without telling the game master.
Question number 10 is, where will the party begin the game and with what direction, if any? It can sometimes be a good idea to know where you're going to start, and if there is already a quest or something for you to get going on. This helps the first session not get bogged down in worrying about exactly where you need to go or when to leave the tavern, and you can really get the story started pretty early rather than kind of wasting too much time.
So these next set of questions start to get into the desires and restrictions that people have for the game. So the next question is, what do you really want to see and get out of this game? What would make you most excited to play? What types of encounters and interactions are you most interested in? So this is important just to kind of decide, like, is this going to be a really combat-heavy game where there's just constantly fights? Do we want to have lots of dialogue and conversation, a mix of everything? Just to kind of get everybody on the same page, because if one person's expecting all combat and another person's expecting political intrigue, it can kind of muddy things up a little bit.
This next question is really important, and it's just some general safety tools. We talk a lot about this in the other 2 videos related to this topic, so I'll keep it very simple in saying, think of it as a stoplight. You discuss what your red lights are, what things would make you want to stop playing the game, what your yellow lights are, things that you're sort of iffy about, and then what your green lights are, the things that you really want to make sure in the game. That way, everyone can explain what their stoplights are, and no one can cross into the wrong territory on accident. Again, be certain you have this conversation, and we highly recommend looking at the other videos for more in-depth explanation if needed.
The next few questions focus on the rules, what rules you'll be using. And so question number 13 is, what system will you be playing in? And will you be using any third-party or homebrew rules, things that weren't necessarily part of the original game?
The next question is, how much focus will we put into the mechanics being strict and rules as written versus focusing on story and kind of moment-to-moment calls? This is going to be different for every table. Some people really like to play the game exactly how the rules say, with never any breaking away from that. And some people just want to tell a fun story that's super lighthearted, free-flowing, very improvisational. And they'll use the rules, but they'll change it on the fly. They'll kind of make adjustments when they need to, skip rules if it suits the story, but making sure that everybody knows ahead of time whether or not you're going to be super strict or super loose with the rules can make sure that people are ready for that sort of experience.
These next couple of questions dig into scheduling the game, which is one of the most important things. It's probably stopped more games that I've been a part of than anything else. So, when will the game be played? So, like, how frequently? And it's important to decide what day and time the sessions are going to happen. And also, how long will the sessions go for? It's important to be flexible with everyone's schedule and decide this, setting the expectations up front.
And right on the heels of that, question number 16 is, what is the standard course of action if someone is unable to play? And will the game continue without them or be postponed until the next scheduled time? So it's very likely that at some point someone won't be able to show up, and it's good to get this out of the way so that nobody feels slighted if maybe you just pretend a character doesn't exist for one session so that everybody else can play, or maybe you decide that, you know, we're definitely not playing unless everyone can make it. It's just a good conversation to have up front.
And then finally, just a space for miscellaneous questions. Is there anything else that needs to be addressed or discussed before the games begin? We've covered a lot of ground across the different questions, but there's always some things for specific games that might be missed or other questions or concerns that people might have. And it's good just to take a second to have a way to talk those things out.
All right, so that should get you started. This is a basic session 0. that should answer the most important questions to get you started so that you can all be on the same page when you begin. If you have other questions that are important to you, now's the time to probably bring them up. If you need more in-depth information on any of these questions, there are 2 more videos that we did. Quick tips, as well as a deep dive in which we do an actual session 0 for a campaign that we're going to be running. Those will be linked below in the description, and there will also be a playlist specifically with the session 0 videos in there. So you can also jump over to those. So we tend to wrap things up with what we call a Tabtarian toast. If this is your first time doing a Tabtarian toast, then welcome. And we are going to toast to your great campaign.
May you mend the first break.
May you kill the first snake.
May you conquer everything you undertake.
Sláinte.
Sláinte.